Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 185, Wednesday, September the 6th. Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy to be with you again this evening. It's about 11:15 p.m. on Tuesday evening Eastern Standard Time. I just got through looking at the latest models of Hurricane Irma, and it's not good, folks. It's 185 mile an hour sustained winds, gust of 220. The track it's going to take is still not certain, but it appears to me impossible that this storm is going to miss at least the southern part of Florida. Whether it goes to the left and goes into the Gulf, whether it goes up the eastern side, and even people up in the Carolinas, even as far as New York up the East Coast, they just don't know which way this thing is going to go. So to anyone, and I know I have friends and I have subscribers and viewers of my videos who do live in those areas. One of my best childhood friends who I keep regular contact with and visit from time to time lives right up in the Panhandle on the Gulf Coast of Florida, a little south of Panama City. And I just got through talking with him. They're watching it very carefully. I know I have subscribers in Florida, the Carolinas, Georgia, New York. You guys watch the storm very carefully. It's a monster. It's a real monster. It's the last thing we needed right now, but it's the reality of what's happening. My only advice to you is do not wait to the last minute to evacuate. Once you learn that this storm is very likely coming your way, you do not want to be in that massive traffic jam of people trying to get out at the last minute. Do not try to be the last one out. Try to be in that first wave of people getting out when you realize that storm is headed your way. 185 mile an hour winds. It could pick up even more. It could get even more powerful. That's not a storm you want anything to do with. So be safe and keep watching your local weather and act accordingly. Be the first, not the last, to evacuate once you realize that storm is headed your way. It's not anything to play around with. Okay, let's get into some TowerGate news. Congress is back in session. You know what that means. Hold on to your wallet, because your life, your liberty, and your fortune are always in jeopardy when the Congress is in session. GOP Senator from Missouri, Roy Blunt, had a great little column today. I can't remember which paper published it, but he lays out a very good argument why it's a huge mistake to fight Trump. Now, you would think that by looking at the polls for a lot of these anti-Trumpers, they would be figuring this out. And some of them are. And you're seeing them move right now into different directions. But Roy Blunt lays out a very good argument. And it is true. It's a mistake to fight Trump for a lot of reasons. It's harmful to the party. It's harmful to the voters. It's harmful to the whole country, even those who didn't vote for Trump. Because even though they may not appreciate it, a lot of his ideas will help them. The fact that we have so many of these anti-Trump Republicans fighting him tooth and nail, I believe is going to be a big mistake and will come back to bite them in the butt. They should read Roy Blunt's article. It's very, very good. Very good article. It's a mistake to fight Trump. No question about it. One guy who's still fighting Trump, Jeff the Flake. And he makes a comment, I believe it was today, where he comes out and says, nobody ought to support the wall. No, Jeff the Flake, everybody should support the wall. Why don't you give the call, Jeff the Flake, to the president of Hungary? He has the actual facts of what a wall can do when you're under siege. Because his country is under siege. They built a wall. And now they're one of the few countries in that region who are not being decimated with Islamic radical terrorism within their own borders. Build the wall. Ignore Jeff the Flake. He's probably going to be defeated anyway. Well, the Rotten Reverend is now blaming Bernie again. She's gone back to blaming Bernie. It was the Russians, then it was this guy, it was that guy. Now she's back to blaming Bernie again. And she made a couple comments. She said that she's a proud Democrat, proud to be a Democrat, and wishes Bernie was too. And she says the only reason he got into the race was to obstruct the process, the democratic process. You know, everyone has moved on except for the Rotten Reverend. She just cannot let it go. And I'm really surprised at this point that Tom Perez and people at the DNC, big donors of the Democratic Party, I'm really surprised that they haven't put a gag on her by now. Because what she's doing, she's continuing to drive this wedge between the progressives and the rank and file corporate Democrats, the regular Democrats. She's only driving the wedge deeper. And I'm happy about that. I'm thrilled about it. I think it's wonderful. But I'm saying from the Democratic perspective, if you are a high-level Democratic in the Democratic Party, if you are a big donor to the Democratic Party, you would think that someone would be getting the message to Hillary to shut up and go away. She is doing damage, which is the last thing they need right now in that party. She's doing greater damage, driving the wedge deeper and deeper between those two ideologies in that party. You know, you have Perez and you have these other people doing a miserable job, but at least they believe they're out there trying to reunite the party or what have you. They're not doing very well at it, and I don't think they will succeed, not for quite some time. But there are at least ways out there talking and telling you that they're trying to bridge the differences and bring the party together, which is what you have to do if you want to win an election, especially a national election or even congressional races. But you got Hillary out there, and she just continues to inflame this situation. The election is over. It's been over for almost a year, but she just can't let it go. The Rotten Reverend continuing to be, next to the liberal media, she's probably the second worst enemy that the Democratic Party has. And you know those Bernie bros, they just have to be flaming mad. You know, because, to make these statements about Bernie after the way she cheated him, and everybody knows it, and then she comes out and makes comments like this. It just tells you that she is a really very insulated person. She is a very clueless person. She's a person who probably lives within her own little bubble, probably has a few very, very loyal people around her who basically tell her what she wants to hear. Nobody ever questions her, and apparently no one has got the stones to give her a call and say, hey, Hillary, go away. Stop writing your lousy books. No one cares. No one's going to buy them. No one's going to pay $3,000 to listen to you cry and whine about why you lost the election, and you're doing great damage to the party that we're trying to fix. Please, go away. That's the phone call she needs. But hey, I hope she keeps it up. More power to her. Good news for us. The Reverend Rotten. Well, the chair of the New Hampshire Democratic Party says that rural disaffected voters are white supremacist. She's basically talking about the whole 87% of the counties in the country that voted for Trump. Those of us who live in what we call flyover country. Well, you know, I know that New Hampshire is quite the unusual place. Some pretty unusual politics up there. Maybe her seat is safe. Maybe she feels comfortable making a statement like that. But it's kind of like Hillary's deplorable comment. When you come out and make a general statement, and that statement affects a vast swath of the country. I mean, this is just stupid politics. It's just stupid politics. But maybe she's just focused on her own local election or playing to her base. I don't really know what would prompt her to make a comment like that. But, this explains why the Democrats are in such deep trouble, why they've lost 4 consecutive elections, and why they're on their way to losing their 5th and 6th elections, which would make a lot of progressives very happy. That's exactly what they want to see. And, of course, I have no problem with that. So, anyway, it's more Trump derangement syndrome. Liberals and Democrats just saying things that are completely bizarre and things that you would just, no professional political advisor would ever advise any politician to make these kind of statements. They're nutty, and they're so counterproductive. I mean, you're trying to gain voters, you're trying to expand your base, and all these comments do is shrink your base and cause you more problems in your recruiting efforts. I mean, it's extraordinary to watch. But I'm glad they're doing it. Hey, I want to give a big shout out to DigCry2, one of my subscribers. If you remember in the last video, I talked about the fact that there was a story, I think I got it off TruthFeed, and they were talking about California wanting to get rid of Father's Day and replace it with Special Persons Day. And I was kind of lamenting the fact that this is going on in Australia, because I always kind of have a soft spot in my heart for Australians. And that's because I've met quite a few Australians, and they've always struck me as being different than, you think about the Australians being, kind of cousins of the Brits, kind of European, but they're really not. Almost all the Australians that I've met, they remind me a lot of Americans. They got that real strong independent streak. They're really tough, rugged, individualist. They have a lot of, what makes Americans tick. A lot of that you find in people from Australia, at least the ones that I've met. They're very tough, smart people, and very independent, self-reliant, all those things that Americans are known for being so much different than Europeans and their British cousins. And that's why I was lamenting that fact. Well, he posted up a comment in the comments section, and I thank him so much for doing so, where he corrected the record and let me know that no, they still have Father's Day in Australia. So I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you, DigCry2, for comforting me on that fact. And he also laid out some very good information, some background information in his comment. If you haven't read it, I highly advise that you do, where he talks a lot about the parties and the various players in politics in Australia. It was a really good deal of background information, really enlightened me, things I didn't know. So I've really learned a lot from that comment, and I really appreciate you, DigCry2, for setting that record straight and informing us all a little bit more about the politics that are going on in Australia. Thank you so much, sir. There is one other story that I'm going to post a link to that you may want to check out. You probably already know about it because you live in Australia, but there's another follow-up story that was done. I'm going to post a link to it, and basically what this follow-up is that there was a Father's Day ad that was banned from TV in Australia for being too political, and this came off of news.com.au, and this particular ad was sponsored by a Christian group, and I understand that Father's Day is like September 3rd, I think, or it's first week of September there in Australia, not the same date here that we have here in the States, but the ad was called Dads for Kids, and apparently this ad was forced off the air. So you may want to take a look at that, DigCry2. I'm going to go ahead and post a link below the description if you want to watch it. You may have already seen it or heard about it because you live there, but it's just kind of a follow-up to what I was talking about. But thank you so much, DigCry2. I'll post the link up there and you can check it out. Thanks again. Well, as I've been telling you guys, I've been, checking out, the FBI director, the new FBI director, Chris Wray, looking for any sign that anything's going on, that he's moving on any of these investigations. And, I'm not really finding very much. But it seems like we're learning all this information. We already have plenty of information for him to launch a new investigation. Maybe he has, and we just don't know about it. Maybe it's being handled by the Department of Justice. But every day we get more bombshell information. So today we get a story that comes out in the Gateway Pundit. And in the Gateway Pundit, and this is according to a reliable intelligence source speaking to a reporter at the Gateway Pundit, where he says that Hillary's lost emails were not lost at all, that the NSA has them and always has. He says that his trusted and reliable NSA source told this reporter at Gateway Pundit that the NSA had all of Hillary Rodham Clinton's emails and even offered them to Comey, and that he turned them down. The NSA had all of Hillary's emails and always did, and at some point during the investigation, they offered all those emails to Comey, and he turned them down. This just plays into what we learned about a week ago about the Comey memos, where he exonerated Clinton before even completing the investigation. So to Chris Wray, what I would say is you have this type of story coming out almost every day, some other version of it. We learned before, 2 months before, that the company that Hillary had her emails stored with, even though they bleach bitted them, stone tier, bleach bitted them, they used a backup service themselves, and that service had those emails. So there's overwhelming evidence that if Comey and the FBI wanted those emails, there were multiple sources now, it appears, that could have produced them. And now we learned today that this intelligence official, who is regarded by the journalist doing the story as having a long track record of being very reliable, stating that no, the NSA made it perfectly clear to Comey they had all the emails, and if he wanted them, they would certainly produce them. He said no. Now, to Christopher Wray, Christopher Wray, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to solve this crime. First of all, Christopher Sherlock Wray, James Comey came out and made the case. Go back and watch his press conference, Christopher Sherlock Wray. You will find that he laid out the case for all the crimes that she committed. One by one, infinitum, went right down the list. He talked about every bit of it. And then he said no reasonable prosecutor would move forward. I mean, Comey laid out the case. And everything that we've learned since then. I just don't understand why Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray, the FBI director, doesn't want to move on this. I just, the fact of the matter is we know now that there was never really any email investigation. There was none. Now we learn that Comey could have had access to all the emails and said no thank you. I mean, it's really testing my patience. Now maybe, like I said, maybe Christopher No Shit Sherlock Wray, the FBI director, is meticulously working through this, and he's just maybe the type of person that doesn't like to talk, which is, typical of the FBI. They won't talk about an investigation until they're ready to turn it over to the Justice Department for prosecution or grand jury or what have you. But maybe he's just trying to keep it under his hat. But, it certainly has an awful lot of people scratching their head wondering, why we're not seeing some action, because it's not like we really need, so much to reinvestigate this. I mean, the rank and file people at the FBI did the investigation. It's just that Comey, at the top of the food chain, basically killed the investigation. He simply, refused to take into consideration the... Well, actually, he did. He stood up there at the podium and laid out the charges. You can't even really say... What I was going to say is he killed the deal, but he really didn't. He stood up there at the podium, laid out the charges, laid out the criminal wrongdoing. He just said no one would prosecute it, no reasonable prosecutor. But at this point, I don't know how much longer No Shit Sherlock Christopher Wray can continue to not comment on this or not give any indication that he's moving forward. He should make some sort of a statement. But it's mind-boggling to watch this happen. And I think what's most frustrating for a lot of people, is, and myself included, is that, you see the president out there every day almost on Twitter tweeting about these crimes that appear not to be getting investigated. That's the president of the United States tweeting about these crimes. It's his Attorney General, Sessions, in charge of the Department of Justice. It's his FBI director in charge of the FBI. So if you have the president, you have his head of the FBI, his head of the Justice Department, and you see nothing actually moving, it makes you wonder who's running the show there. And that's what's frustrating about it. You know, if the president and everyone else is ignoring it, you can say, okay, well, I'm just mad about it. But it's the president of the United States tweeting about this stuff every day. His people running the show. Yet, we learn about, the blocking of witnesses not coming forth with the information that's being requested by the various committees. We see no special prosecutor to investigate. I mean, if anything, Christopher Wray should immediately, just based on what we know now, tomorrow they should be announcing that there's a special prosecutor to look into the emails. There should be a special prosecutor looking into the Clinton Foundation. There should be a special prosecutor looking into the dossier and all this stuff. But we don't see it. And it kind of boggles your mind. And, I just don't know what to think at this point. We'll just have to keep watching. At some point, we throw up our hands. I sure hope the truth comes out, though. Oh, boy. Eddie Munster Paul Ryan releases a statement hoping to continue the Dreamer Amnesty program. So he comes out and he's opposed to it and says it's unconstitutional when Obama creates it, which it was. And then when Trump gives it back to the Congress to actually do something with it, now he supports it. It's just anything to oppose Trump. But he's running an ad in Wisconsin right now where he's supporting the wall. Yet at the very same time he's running an ad in Wisconsin supporting the wall, behind the scenes he's doing everything he can to block the funding. Typical politician, and especially Paul Big Ears Ryan. I certainly hope you people in Wisconsin don't fall for that. Unbelievable. It's funny, and this is just another kind of spin-off story to that, but the majority leader of the Republican Party, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, was on Fox, and again, before he thought his mic was on, he chuckled and made a joke about the fact that there was a major funding delay in the border wall legislation, and he was giggling before he started talking about it, very sarcastically. In other words, he's basically saying that, we're going to make sure that that there's problems with that border wall. We're going to make sure. So again, this is the majority leader who works closely with Paul Ryan. So this just shows you what kind of game they're actually running and how stupid that they believe the voters are. And I don't know, maybe they are, maybe they're right. I mean, they're awfully arrogant and awfully cocky. They seem to think that they have a system in place that can't be beaten, that they can basically look you directly in the eye, lie to you over and over again, play you for a sucker and a fool, and you'll fall for it every time. Lincoln used to say you can fool some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. Hopefully the people in Wisconsin will not be fooled by Big Ears Ryan, and hopefully Kevin McCarthy will be primaried and defeated. Never liked him in the first place. He was John Boehner's bitch. He's nothing more than John Boehner. I mean, he's John Boehner in a different suit. I mean, that's basically what Kevin McCarthy is. And he's one of the central people that's gumming up the works, believe me. He is Paul Ryan's point man for gumming up the works, as a matter of fact. Kevin McCarthy needs to go right along with Big Ears Paul Ryan. Don't let him flip-flop and lie and spin his way back into leadership. Paul Nehlen. Hey, Antifa is now telling Trump to stop bullying Kim. They're talking about Kim Jong-un, the demonic Teletubby. It appears that Antifa has now put their support fully behind North Korea and Kim Jong-un. Oh, how I wish that I could load up a couple of jumbo 747s full of Antifa and drop their asses off in North Korea. Let them experience life in North Korea under Kim. Let them experience that for even 1 hour, let alone a lifetime. They'd be singing a different tune, I can assure you of that. Absolutely unbelievable that they would come out. And keep in mind, I haven't heard Senator Magoo come out and recant his statement supporting Antifa. I haven't heard it from some of the other anti-Trump Republicans who jumped on that bandwagon. Still a lot of Democrats who were out there speaking glowingly of Antifa, right along with MSNBC and CNN and all the rest. The same usual suspects. But there you go. Antifa. Stop bullying Kim, President Trump. These people are nuts, man. They're beyond nuts. Which kind of reminds me of a funny video clip. I wasn't even going to talk about this, but funny video clip from MSNBC. They had some liberal pundit on with the usual, Morning Joe people, and they were talking about Hillary's book tour and how arrogant she is to be charging all this money. So even MSNBC is turning on Hillary. And Morning Joe, the a-hole that he is, even made a sarcastic comment when they were talking about the fact that she would be going to Wisconsin on her book tour. And he just kind of commented and made a smirk and said, yeah, well, at least way she can find Wisconsin this time. Which is absolutely true. She couldn't find Wisconsin back during the election. She didn't want to go pay a visit, and it cost her the state. Now she wants to go back there and see if she can sucker those people in for $2 or $3 grand for a seat to listen to her whine and cry about why she lost the election. She's still blaming Russia, and now she's back to blaming Bernie. I mean, this woman is nuts. Please go away. The Rotten Reverend. The Rotten Reverend. Okay, I want to finish up today by talking about something that I occasionally watch Dick Morris's videos, and I talk about Dick Morris quite a bit. He's the farthest thing in the world you ever get to a conspiracy theorist. He just doesn't really do much of that kind of stuff. He's very much of a mainstream political insider, was a Washington insider for many years. Now he's kind of an outsider. Writes books, does speeches, things like that. But, I was talking a couple days about the fact that Grassley and Feinstein are complaining because the FBI is blocking, not allowing these two FBI agents, Comey's chief of staff and the other guy, their names, of course, James Rybecki, former chief of staff of James Comey, and this other guy, Gaddis, the two people below Comey. And we were talking about the fact that the FBI is blocking them, not allowing them to come in and testify to the Judiciary Committee, specifically over some questions about the dossier, the funding of the dossier, who paid for it, and all that sort of thing. And I was suggesting my own thoughts on that, but which was that possibly it's because the FBI or Comey or McCabe or whoever may have been paying for the dossier after the election was over, that they may have continued to fund the investigation into the dossier. That was kind of where my train of thought was going. But Dick Morris has taken it to another level. And I think that, this is not, it sounds like conspiracy theory stuff, but, it's really logical if you follow it. Remember, this is a guy who's a big-time insider. He's been a presidential, strategist to 3 presidents. He's been in the White House. He knows how things work in the Beltway. He lives there, basically. So this is a guy who knows what he's talking about. He's not a conspiracy theorist, but, he's talking about the fact that, if you remember, I mentioned a couple weeks ago that it was astonishing when Christopher Steele's lawyers over in the UK were reading a statement from their client where he states that the information came to him unsolicited. And I remember I did a video and I said, that's a completely new twist, because up until now we've been told that, Christopher Steele was contacted by GPS and he went out to his sources. Being the former ambassador to Russia, he would have these Russian sources, and he went to these sources and dug up this dirt and said, hey, what can you tell me about this or that? And they gave him this information, and he puts together the dossier. But then, when the heat starts building around Christopher Steele as the lawsuit is moving forward, then he chooses to come out just a couple of weeks ago and say, well, hey, the information came to me unsolicited. Well, that means that he didn't go out and pursue the information in the dossier, that it came to him. Now, Dick Morris is looking at that, and he's also looking at the fact that the FBI is simply refusing to allow, essentially obstructing the Judiciary Committee, not allowing Comey's chief of staff and the other guy to testify to the Judiciary Committee specifically about things regarding the dossier. They're being awfully, awfully protective of that. And now you have Christopher Steele saying that the material came to him unsolicited. When you put these things together, as I think Dick Morris is doing, and I think there's some credibility I would give to this train of thought, the path he's going down, is he's suggesting, is it possible that GPS fusion and their connections to American intelligence, maybe this was an intelligence operation between Brennan at the CIA, maybe Comey's involved, you got GPS fusion, maybe they needed a straw man, someone who they could prop up to say, okay, this is our source, but really he was nothing more than a straw man. And because he was a former intelligence official and he runs a political opposition research business, he would be the ideal man. He's not an American citizen. He doesn't live in America. So he would have been the perfect straw man. So what Dick Morris is suggesting, I think, is that possibly this was a CIA operation between GPS fusion and the CIA, possibly with Comey being involved as well, and that they used Christopher Steele to say, this is our guy who compiled all this information. But as Morris is suggesting, maybe it was GPS fusion working with the CIA, possibly with Comey, but mainly the CIA that was actually producing the information. They were the ones producing the information and giving it to Steele. And then Steele was putting it together. Because this Judiciary Committee, they want to know the names of those sources in the dossier, which we have, from the dossier when it came out as Source A, Source B, Source D, Source E. They want to get to the bottom of who these sources were. And now they have Christopher Steele saying that that this material came to him unsolicited, which is suggesting that someone came to him with the information. Now, who would that have been? Well, you're talking about people who deal in intelligence and the deep state and things like that. So I can see where Dick Morris would draw the connection, where it's very possible that when Christopher Steele said that it was unsolicited, this may be what he's referring to. Where did it come from? GPS. Look at their connection to intelligence, American intelligence. We know about Brennan, his connections to Clintons and the DNC and the deep state. So it's very likely, very possible, that Christopher Steele was nothing more than a straw man to be used as a source when actually the information was being generated by the CIA, working with GPS fusion. It was being funneled around to Christopher Steele. Then he produced the dossier, packaged it, and give it back to GPS. So the entire operation may have been a CIA GPS operation from the very beginning. And Comey may have been getting played along. Maybe the CIA is getting this information to Comey, which we know they were, from his agents in Rome who were being contacted and given this information. That could have been CIA. And then the whole thing goes full circle and comes back. So this would make a lot of sense when you actually look at it, from this angle that Dick Morris is taking. It's certainly not such a wild conspiracy theory that you would say could not happen or would not happen. These types of things are done all the time. But this would certainly explain why the Republicans, especially Republicans and Democrats who say they want to get to the bottom of things, why they would allow Glenn Simpson and GPS to receive such easygoing treatment, to get a closed-door session, not to have to answer certain questions they didn't want to answer, that they agreed beforehand that he wouldn't be asked, why they are giving him the soft shoe treatment, why they are not pushing the dossier, why the FBI doesn't want these two guys who worked for Comey directly under him to answer questions about the dossier. You don't hear a peep out of Brennan. There's a lot of things going on here. A lot of things going on. It's very, very cloudy, I guess you would say. It's not clear exactly what is going on, but Dick Morris is certainly onto something there. It would certainly explain the comment that Christopher Steele made that the information came to him unsolicited. If that's true, exactly what he said, he didn't go looking for it. It came to him. Who brought it to him? The CIA would be your number one target, or FBI intelligence, but probably this would be more of a CIA thing. So, certainly food for thought, isn't it? Okay, you guys, keep watching that storm. If you're in the path of it, it's TowerGate, day 185, Wednesday, September 6th, 2017. Y'all have a good evening. Good night.